I don't stand with pick-me's, and I don't stand with billionaires.
Anybody who is not a straight white Swiftie is going to have some thoughts about this.
Okay, who do you allow in your life? Are you going to allow homophobes?
The Swifties are not okay. Taylor Swift drama divides the internet. An MSNBC guest calls for Elon Musk to be prosecuted. Tim Walz tells a really strange lie. And a TikToker explains a new sexuality called fictosexuality. All this and so much more is coming up on today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where I take on the craziest ideas from across our politics and across the internet, all from a center-right independent perspective. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing and sticking around. And regardless, do hit that like button as we go along and do comment with your thoughts. I do read the comments and I pick a few to respond to in every episode. If you leave yours with a super chat or a super thanks, I'll definitely read it on the next show. First, before we get into the Taylor Swift craziness, I just want to say a quick thank you to all of you for your extraordinarily kind and heartfelt messages after my announcement about Reggie yesterday. You guys, your response has just been so heartwarming and has really helped me feel better. So thank you for that. Thank you for all the comments, all the notes, all the messages. I won't be able to respond to them all, but I am seeing them and it really does mean a lot. Now, we've got to talk about Taylor Swift and in particular, a more rabid subsection of her very online fandom, which is known as the Swifties. Taylor Swift fans online and young people call themselves Swifties. Some of them are frankly losing their shit right now for a pretty absurd reason, because Taylor Swift a few days ago was photographed at the Kansas City Chiefs game with Brittany Mahomes, who is the wife of Patrick Mahomes, who's on the Chiefs, I guess. We're really testing the limits of my sports ball NFL knowledge with this one, guys, so apologies in advance. But anyway, Taylor Swift was photographed hugging and smiling with her apparent friend, Brittany Mahomes, who is another partner of a person on the team, because Taylor's dating one of the players from the Chiefs, I guess. So, the long and short of it is that apparently Brittany Mahomes is, gasp, a Trump supporter. Or at least she liked a couple posts that were pro-Trump. So people are assuming she's a Trump supporter. And now some irate Swifties are melting down and coming unhinged because Taylor dares be seen in public with somebody with different political views than the ones that they subscribe to. It's a stunning display of intolerance and close-mindedness, and we're going to unpack some of the most unhinged reactions I've seen online. One Taylor Swift fan account tweeted, "To all my POC and marginalized Swifties who are struggling with seeing Taylor with Britney, I see you, I am with you, and I love you." Ugh, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. First and foremost, because y'all need to get real problems if the biggest problem in your life is that your favorite pop star took a photo or was seen being friendly to somebody who has opinions you don't share. Really? That's your biggest problem in the world, babe? And there's something infantilizing about this as well, like POC and marginalized LGBTQIA plus alphabet people, they're so fragile and vulnerable. They're just going to be melting. They must be having such a hard time right now because of that Taylor Swift photo. No, actually, people in minority groups are not emotional toddlers, most of them, who melt down into puddles over minor things on the internet that don't really please them. Like the condescending view. I'm almost certain this was a woke, straight white woman who posted this, and it just accidentally reveals a very condescending view of people of color and other minorities. It's really quite something to behold. But there were a bunch of other unhinged tweets from Swifties that kind of came along in the same vein. Another one said, "We as Swifties need to call out Taylor for being hypocritical and a performative activist. She cries and makes a huge deal about being an activist in Miss Americana and then surround herself with Trumpies and predators. I'm so disappointed in her. Babe, you need to get a grip. Okay, because if you are so disappointed that she dare be friendly with a teammate's wife who is in the same box as her and who happens to have indicated some degree of support for Trump or Republicans, then you have way too much invested in the social life of a random pop star, no matter how much you like her music, and you're reading way too deep into this. Okay, this is not normal. This is Delulu. And I guess inherent to this is a belief I fundamentally reject, that just because someone disagrees with you politically, they must be an entirely bad person, right? If they're a Trump supporter, they must be evil. So how could you associate it with evil? In reality, most people, there are a few exceptions out there, but most people are not entirely bad or good. All people are far more than just their political views. They have many sides to them and shades of gray, and we should be able to see the good and bad in everyone and take what's there, take the goodness that's there in people, even if we do have some different values or different experiences or different beliefs. Nobody, or at least very few people, are entirely bad or entirely good, and it's just a very close-minded approach to the world that you shouldn't even be seen in public with a friend who thinks differently. Like, get a grip. Okay, it's giving closed-minded, it's giving unhinged, it's giving parasocial relationship as well. It wasn't just Twitter, where you can always find crazy people posting things, but this same kind of attitude was expressed on TikTok at great length. So I'm going to play you guys a little compilation of TikTokers, some Swifties, some just kind of left-wing types, complaining about Taylor taking this photo and daring to be friendly to somebody who, gasp, is a Trump supporter or whatever. Let's take a listen to these, frankly, moderately unhinged videos.
Taylor Swift is even worse because she surrounds herself with misogynistic, Trump-supporting people. Like, she is supposed to be the rah-rah advocate for feminism, to be this, like, icon in the pop space, when these are the people that she associates herself with. Birds of a feather flock together. I don't stand with pick-me's, and I don't stand with billionaires.
I have always felt that You Need to Calm Down is a performative LGBTQ song. And honestly, here is the proof, because if she was an ally, she would not be hanging around a Trump supporter. That's just the very plain and simple.
Anybody who is not a straight white Swiftie is going to have some thoughts about this, because Trump and everyone who supports him are literally coming for our necks, particularly trans people and people of color, poor people, like the list goes on. So yeah, people can say that it doesn't matter who Taylor is seen with, because you can have friends who don't agree with you politically, but I don't find that to be true at all, that you can just have friends who disagree with you politically. I personally have distanced myself from almost all of my living family members, which is very few, and many of my long-term friends, because I live in a red state, and many of those people have turned into Trumpers. It's not as simple as like, oh, we disagree, but we can still be friends. You can't agree to disagree on human rights.
Can Taylor Swift be friends with Brittany Mahomes? Sure, but then we are going to have to speculate, okay, who do you allow in your life? Are you going to allow homophobes? Like,
oh my God, these people are exhausting. This bizarre guilt by association, policing of somebody and trying to dictate their entire worldview by simply whether they're able to be around other people that disagree with them. It's such unhinged stuff. I really don't get it. I mean, nothing is ever good enough for these types. You can literally be an open LGBT activist like Taylor Swift, write whole songs about how gay people don't need to change and you're great and you're perfect, wave the rainbow flag, donations, get involved in politics to support LGBT rights, all this stuff, and you're still not good enough. Nothing is ever good enough. It must be exhausting to try to stay in the good graces of woke progressives. Like, I don't try, because it's just that ship sailed literally half a decade ago for me. So I've never even tried. But if you are somebody like Taylor Swift who tries to appease these people, it must be exhausting, because the sand is always shifting beneath your feet, right? The ground is always shifting. You can never keep up. Now, it's not enough to be a full ally, to have donated, to have gotten involved in politics. You also need to cut every person out of your life who is even a Republican. Although, again, there's that false premise that means all Republicans are anti-gay or anti-LGBT or whatever, which is not true. I mean, at this point, there are many gay Republicans and gay LGBT voters. So it is just not true. In fact, a lot of this is just rooted in dystopian levels of propaganda and hysteria, like with the one chick that said, Republicans want POC and minorities dead and are coming for their necks. It's like you people live in an imaginary world that doesn't exist. So I guess maybe if you truly did believe these demented, deranged distortions, I could understand how you wouldn't want to be people to be seen with somebody who supports like mass slaughter of people, but like that's just not reality at all. So I don't know how you can reach that dark place, though maybe I can see how you spiral like this once you're there, I guess. But and I'm sorry to the lady with the pink hair who talks about how she cuts off all her friends and family and is just alone in her apartment filming TikToks basically because people support Trump and I live in a red state. Like, I'm sorry that Taylor Swift is not as mentally ill as you. Like, okay, you expect her to be? No, babe, we should be working on you, getting you to the normal place that Taylor Swift is in, where she's an adult who can coexist with other people and get along with people, even though you have differences of opinion. That's normal. Where you are is bleak. And I say that with some degree of compassion. You actually need to seek help. Like, that's not good. You're destroying your life in the name of intolerance and some bizarre political cult you've fallen into. It's really sad, but don't project those expectations onto people like Taylor Swift, who by all accounts seem relatively normal and well-adjusted, because we're not going to be like you. We don't want to be like you. And there's a reason for that. And nothing pisses me off more than this trite line about you can't disagree about human rights. Well, babe, y'all have defined your politics so that everything you agree with is a human right. So by that logic, you just take a disagreement off the table. If that were literally true, if we were just talking about true core human rights, that would be one thing. But they now call everything a freaking human right under the sun. So that one no longer works. Okay. It does not work. Overall, this story, it amused me. It really does. I love when woke people are eating their own. But on another level, it makes me really sad because it kind of encapsulates what I see as a totalizing and reductive and close-minded worldview where you just have no space for any nuance or any humility that the questions dividing the world might actually be complicated enough that good people could reach different sides in good faith. No, you have it all figured out. These random Swifties on the internet have answers to all the complex questions that divide us, and the answers are so clear and simple that it's just the good people versus the bad people. It's really sad. It's a really close-minded and reductive worldview, and it's not exclusive to woke people by any means, but this story really did encapsulate it. It's just a microcosm to me of everything that's wrong with our politics and our society. And once again, to the Swifties, you need to calm down. You're being too loud. I don't know, guys. You let me know what you think of this crazy story and of the Swifties community more broadly in the comments below. And do remember to hit that like button to reward my suffering through this absolute cesspool of insanity that is the Swiftie internet fandom. Up next, we've got to talk about the folks over at MSNBC who have gone pretty wild in their coverage of Elon Musk, with one guest recently calling for the ex-CEO and Tesla CEO to be prosecuted because he says things that the folks at MSNBC disagree with online. Let's take a look at this pretty disturbing clip.
The headline says Elon Musk's misleading election claims accrue 1.2 billion views on X. False or misleading claims about the U.S. election that Elon Musk has posted to X have generated nearly 1.2 billion views, according to an analysis published Thursday by the nonprofit Center for Countering Digital Hate. Researchers from the center say they identified 50 instances this year when Musk posted election claims that have been debunked by independent fact checkers but spread widely on the app anyway. Again, no surprise to you, but he actually controls the algorithms. People have said ever since Elon Musk has taken over, certain people's accounts don't get amplified, other things do. This is a guy who said he wanted to own X to make it a town square, to make it a public square where voices were not squelched. Now it's being used for exactly the things you wrote a book about that almost wrecked some of our elections.
So the critical element in thinking about Elon Musk is, like any American, he has a right to his own opinion, and he has a right to express his opinion. However, that right is not unlimited, and he is under some special limitations that wouldn't apply to normal people, because his companies, specifically Starlink and SpaceX, are government contractors. And as such, he has obligations to the government that would for any normal person and should for him require him to moderate his speech in the interest of national security. So what you have is somebody who runs really strategic defense and aerospace projects for the federal government who's actively undermining the government which is paying him. And somewhere in there is a legal case that needs to be prosecuted.
Excuse me? I mean, look, it's not super clear what this guy means, but to even imply that somebody should be criminally prosecuted, right? Prosecuted refers to criminal charges because of the things they say online that you guys think are untrue. And to be fair, Elon's posted some stuff about elections online that is misleading or is not accurate. He shit posts on Twitter far too much for my tastes, including a lot of stuff that I think is misleading or inaccurate. But you know what? That's free speech. That's protected by the First Amendment. There is no exception for misinformation or hate speech or any of this other nonsense. You are allowed to be wrong in public. That is part of free speech. And you need the freedom to be wrong in order to figure out what's right. It's really simple. Con law, Constitution 101, free speech 101. And look, I guess I'm not old enough to remember when MSNBC was like truly a liberal network, right? But it has this reputation of being liberal. Well, actual old-fashioned, old-school liberals believe in free speech and the open marketplace of ideas and debate. They believe in free expression. This is like a pseudo-fascist, pro-government crackdown type, big government progressivism that has really nothing in common with classical liberalism whatsoever. It's really scary and frightening stuff. And no, I don't really buy the argument that just because Elon's companies have contracts with the federal government, he is somehow not entitled to the protections of the First Amendment in his personal capacity. No, not how that works. And two, I don't really see how SpaceX or Starlink working with the feds is affected by Elon personally tweeting his opinions about politics. To me, those two things can and should coexist independently. I don't see that. I view that as a real stretch. It's like they do this thing often where they just invoke national security with no real details or explanation as an attempt to justify censorship. And are there rare exceptions where national security concerns brought up in this context are legit? Yes, but more often than not, it's kind of brought up as a smokescreen, as a justification for a crackdown on speech they don't like. And the MSNBC host here just moved on, like, yeah, that sounds like common sense. Anyway, moving on. But I would like to think that the folks at MSNBC, and I guess maybe I'm being naive or too generous, I'd really like to think they'd have the basic common sense and critical thinking to have the foresight to realize that allowing the government to crack down on false information that's spread online is not going to work out well for MSNBC. There is a good chance that Donald Trump is going to be the next president of the United States. Just as a matter of reality, it's a good chance it could happen. And he has, over the years, said things that I do disagree with, that he would like to crack down on the press in different ways. And guess what? He is going to certainly view a lot of MSNBC's coverage of the election or of his administration, if he were to win, as false or misleading, even if some of it might not be, right? But all of this is subjective. But when you make the government the arbiter of truth and let it crack down on untrue statements posted online, well, guess what? That government might be run by Trump soon. So it is insane to me that the folks at MSNBC, at least this one host, can't see how incredibly short-sighted this ground they're allowing to be staked out on their airwaves is, and how it would almost certainly redound to their own demise. And of course, I would still defend them if that were to happen. I would defend their rights. But part of me would also say, well, you around and you found out, right? You played stupid games and you won stupid prizes. And unfortunately, that's becoming a real pattern for the folks over at MSNBC. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And now we've got to do a brief item on Democratic VP nominee and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who spoke to the Human Rights Campaign, a left-wing Democratic activist group that purports to be about LGBT rights, but is pretty much just a Team Blue front org. And he was talking about LGBT rights when he made this real whopper, this really bizarre false claim. Take a listen to Tim Walz the other day.
Think about this. When I was a kid growing up in Nebraska, being gay was illegal. Still technically illegal. Look how much has changed since this organization was founded 40 years ago. Can you imagine going back to me, a high schooler in the early 80s, and saying, you know what? We're going to kick down the barriers. We're going to open doors. We're going to pass laws that lets you bring your authentic self, love who you want to love, and live the life that you want to live all by yourself with no interference from government.
So Tim just moved on in his speech like it was no big deal, and this barely even got picked up. He just said it's still illegal to be gay in Nebraska. No, babe, that is incorrect and totally untrue and has no basis in reality. Not only is it completely legal to be gay in Nebraska, gay marriage is recognized in Nebraska. And in Nebraska, like everywhere else in the country, gay people even enjoy anti-discrimination protections under federal law. How Tim Walz could make such a bizarre and false claim and basically nobody notice and nobody in the mainstream media fact check him like they're so quick to do with Trump when he says stuff that's not true is really, really glaring. But it's all part of a pattern. They do lie and mislead the public about LGBT issues, and they constantly, on the Democratic and progressive side, make things out to be so much worse than they are and so hyperbolic because it's a winning issue for them, they believe. And they think they can scare people who care about LGBT people to vote for them if they just paint dire enough warnings. But in reality, they've cried wolf so many times that nobody really believes them. If they were just honest and said, yeah, there are some things on the Republican side they would do that are bad, that you should vote against, people might listen. But because they told us that Trump would get rid of gay marriage, he didn't. Because they told us the gay people would be put into electric shock camps by Mike Pence, never happened. Because they keep saying all this constant, insane fear porn, people just tune them out and they roll their eyes. And outside of their base, no one takes this seriously, including many LGBT people who are now looking to the other side and actually open-minded to voting for Trump, many of them. And it's not working. And I need Democrats and progressives to realize that they have overplayed the hyperbole card way too many times in recent decades. From net neutrality is going to be the end of the internet, to Trump's tax cuts will literally kill people, to all this stuff they constantly are claiming the sky is falling. It is a classic example of the boy or girl or they, them who cried wolf. And they've cried wolf so many times that nobody is coming running. Okay. And Tim Walz is just, with his bizarre claim about how it's somehow illegal to be gay in Nebraska, which is not true, Tim Walz is just the latest example. What do you guys think of this pretty crazy statement? And are you surprised that nobody really picked up on it outside of me and a few other people? Let me know in the comments. And now it's time for Brad versus TikTok, my daily segment where I take on the craziest ideas from the Clock app.
Pronoun of the day is slugs.
Today, we're going to take a look at a video from a young woman explaining a new woke sexuality that just dropped, fictosexual, which apparently is when you have relationships with fictional characters. Now, before I play the video, I do want to tell you guys this young woman is autistic and she does not deserve any bullying or ridicule. I want to talk about the idea here and the fact that this stuff is being spread to impressionable young people, but please treat her with empathy and kindness. Do not ridicule her or demean her in any way. Now let's take a listen to this video.
Next thing I want to talk about is the different levels of loving fictional characters. Some people who are non-fictosexual just have a crush on a fictional character as a joke. It's just something they like to joke about, and that's just kind of how fictional character crushes are sometimes. But fictosexuality goes deeper than that. There are people like myself who have relationships with fictional characters that are very deep and meaningful. And for example, my relationship with Fizzarali from Hell of a Boss, he has, even though I'm still struggling in life, because life is hard for everybody, I have such a deep connection to him, and he has inspired me to become a better person and do things that I never thought I would do in my life. So yes, there are different levels to loving fictional characters, and I feel like being fictosexual is when you just truly feel some sort of love, as opposed to it just being, oh, I have a crush on a fictional character just because they're hot or cool or trendy or stuff like that.
So again, I do want to emphasize that I don't want any bullying or harassment towards this young woman who does say in her profile that she has autism, and I do believe is a victim here who's been led astray by nonsense gobbledygook being spread on TikTok, not somebody who we should be ridiculing or bullying. So if I do see anybody doing that in the comments, I will delete it, but please don't do that. First and foremost, I've got to say, stop. Stop adding fake, made-up things that aren't real and aren't legitimate to the LGBT acronym and the community. You are not helping. You are dragging us all down with your nonsense. Fictosexuality is not a sexual orientation. You cannot have a relationship with something that does not exist. You do not have a relationship with a fictional character because a relationship takes two. It takes two people. It has to involve another party. And in this case, your other party is something that literally by definition does not exist and is not real. It is okay to have a crush on a fictional character, I guess, or whatever. But if you actually find yourself developing this kind of parasocial relationship, it's not really a relationship, hence the parasocial qualifier, to something that isn't real, well, we should be working on that. Right? And I say this with empathy, not scorn, but we should be working on that and see, why aren't you able to connect with people in real life? What's going wrong? And how can we help you build a true bond and relationship, which is one of the beautiful parts of life, and not have a parasocial relationship with somebody who doesn't exist and can't actually support you, can't actually love you back. Like, that is not a viable alternative. It's not a good alternative. And it is absolutely not a legitimate orientation or lifestyle to be placed on par with being gay or being lesbian or being bisexual or what have you. Absolutely not. And we do have to talk about the fact that when we come across this kind of nonsensical thing on TikTok, very often the person who has fallen prey to it is an autistic person. And that to me demonstrates one of the harms of the woke nonsense being spread on TikTok, is that they are pushing these incoherent ideological notions onto people who maybe are more likely to glom onto them and be led astray by them because of something like autism or something like an unsupport in a different context, a unsupportive home life, or vulnerable people are being targeted with these messages and led astray. And that is really, really concerning to me. There's also something about this that just gives wanting to be included. Online culture is so broken that it really does valorize victimhood. It really has made identification or belonging in some sort of victim group a form of social currency, so much so that people are trying to stretch their identities into somehow being marginalized or part of this category of LGBTQ when they're actually not. So like this young woman is clearly attracted to male characters. So this is just a straight young woman, and that is perfectly okay. It is okay to be heterosexual, but in these hyper online spaces, most of the real world is still not like this, but in these hyper online spaces, it is trendy or cool to be a part of some marginalized identity. So because you have that, of course, being a victim in any way or being a part of one of these groups shouldn't be stigmatized, but it also shouldn't be valorized. It shouldn't be celebrated. It should just be a value neutral thing. But because these online spaces have rewarded this stuff and have made it cool and trendy and fashionable and even hierarchical in terms of who should speak on certain things and all of this, what you have is people trying to opt in or stretch their identities to be marginalized. And you end up in absurd places like this, where straight women are somehow inventing new sexualities to somehow be part of the alphabet mafia. Like, no, this needs to stop. This is not a sign of a healthy online ecosystem or culture. It is just not. Again, nothing but love to this young woman. I hope she can kind of realize that this isn't something to be doubling down on like this, and also that it's harmful to spread it to others. But I'm sending her love, and I really do feel bad for all the young people who are being hopelessly confused on this app. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you identify as fictosexual? And do you know any young people who have been kind of led astray by this nonsense online? Let me know in the comments. And now I'll read a few of your comments before we wrap up today's show. One person writes, when I was a child, I'm 48, violence was very glorified. 80s movies and cartoons were all violent. Some of the most popular kids' toys were gun and weapon related. In more rural areas, high school kids had hunting rifles in their cars, and bullying was very prevalent in school, and we were latchkey kids. And we didn't have nearly as many school shootings or school violence in general. What is different from then and now? Yeah, this is a good point. It is not as simple as we glorify violence or violent video games or anything like that, because that kind of stuff has been prevalent for a long time and simply does not explain this issue. Another person writes, so sorry about Reggie. My heart hurts for you so much, and I want to donate again to go towards a memorial necklace or something to remember him for your desk. Use it as you will, but it always helps to have happy memories of him around. It'll get easier, I promise. When you're ready, it helps to have a new companion as well, not to take his place by any means, but just to hug, love, and cheer you up. You'll be giving another sweetheart a great life as well. Well, thank you so much for the donation. I'm sure we will do some kind of memorial thing to put around the house. And I am going to get another dog, but probably I won't be ready for some time. But when I do, it will almost certainly be a rescue dog. I tend to do that more than be interested in getting a puppy or anything like that. Another person writes, the Second Amendment wasn't a gun control policy. It was written so we could fight back against a tyrannical government. Our guns have become more powerful than muskets, but so has the government. I'm pretty sure our founding fathers didn't anticipate tanks, nuclear bombs, and military-grade rifles far more deadly than the over-the-counter grade AR-15s. If anything, our founding fathers would be advocating for us to have tanks and grenades. This person clearly has independence privilege. Well, that's quite the comment there. I do agree with you that the founding fathers wanted people to have the ability to resist their government for sure. And that was a key part of the Second Amendment. Another person said, hi, Brad. Thanks for sharing about Reggie. I'm dealing with something very similar with my American Eskimo, Hachi. I'm almost 29 and I've had him since I was 15. He was recently diagnosed with cancer. Totally understand that you aren't going to be the same for a while. I don't know how I'm going to do without my little shadow. I hope you feel better soon. Oh, well, thank you so much. And I'm sorry you're going through it as well. My heart goes out to you, and just enjoy the time that you have with him or her left. It's really special, and it won't be the same without them, but you'll hopefully have no regrets, and you'll know that you made the most of your time together. And that's how I feel about it as well. So that's helping me get through it. Another person said, as a teacher, I can say we have resources in schools to help these kids. You need to have parent consent for them to access, though, and a lot of the times the kids who need the help the most are also the ones who parents won't allow them access. I personally think we need a way that if the school identifies a mental health problem with a student, they should have a course to get them counseling, even if the parents say no, maybe some sort of evaluation from CPS. I'm so sorry about Reggie. We lost our pup a year ago, so I understand. Take comfort knowing you gave him a good life. And when you are ready, your episodes in the backlog where Reggie joined you on screen will bring you comfort. Oh no, I can't go look at that. That would make me just bawl if I were to go look at one of those episodes. But thank you so much for the support. And yeah, I don't know what the answer is when it comes to schools, but we keep having these situations where we're missing red flags and warning signs, and there's got to be something we can be doing differently. Another person says, I'm so sorry about your Reggie. I understand so much about losing your fur baby. I lost my 9-month-old kitty, Jasper, 2 weeks ago to feline leukemia. No. Oh. We went in to get him fixed, but had to send him over the Rainbow Bridge. I held him the whole time. I'm deeply sorry for you and your BF's loss. All we can give them is the best life while they are here. Yes, we can. And then, like I said, we'll have no regrets, but my heart goes out to you, and I'm so sorry about your little kitty. That must be so hard. Another person said, I'm so sorry, Brad. I broke down into a complete crying fit while you were speaking about Reggie. I've never been the same since I held my 21-year-old baby kitty, Zoe, as they put her to sleep. I hope you're okay. The biggest things that helped me were having some photos of her next to my bed and around my home, and blocking out thoughts of the last months instead of thinking of all the good memories from her healthy years. Please take a break if you need it and cry as much as... No, oh my God, now your comment's making me cry. Stop. I did not want... That was not my goal, to make you guys sad. I just wanted to be honest with you about what was going on. And yeah, I can relate to a lot of what you're saying, and I'm going to try to focus on the good and the positive and the good memories. So... All right, everybody, that is going to be it for this episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Do subscribe if you haven't yet. Hit that like button, comment with your thoughts, yada, yada, yada. And we will talk again tomorrow.